Hi there. Welcome to the Quick 60 with Joe. My name is Joe Vasquez, and I'm an entrepreneur and investor based in San Francisco, California. The Quick 60 is a series of workshops covering topics from Microsoft spreadsheets all the way to business development and everything in between. The goal is to give you the most important skills that you need to get ahead in the workforce. We're going to keep it fun, within 60 minutes, and give you both a high-level overview and a deep dive of these most critical skills. So let's dig in. The theme of today's Quick 60 is going to be business development. Business development is one of the most overlooked but important skills that you need to grow your company. It covers everything from sales to marketing to partnerships to even internal operations. We'll be talking about the high-level overview as well as some growth tactics and strategies that you can use to grow your company. I'll be bringing in my great friend Jackie Hyland, who will be co-teaching this course with me, and we'll finalize or conclude today's workshop with some COVID considerations, things that you need to be thinking about in the time of coronavirus. Trying to build relationships with. So for today's presentation, just going to do a quick intro that Dahlia did already. What is business development? Go into business development strategy, some tactics, which is more of a sales or a growth model overview, some quick case studies, particularly with a lens towards COVID and coronavirus considerations, and how do we adapt in this contentious time. A little bit of a homework assignment, and then I'll have a quick ask to maybe donate to some good social impact causes at the end of this. So if you want to download or use this presentation, there's a bit.ly link on the bottom, bit.ly/bizdevpresso. So feel free to save that link, download the presentation. There's some great worksheets and materials in there for you. So again, bit.ly/bizdevpresso. So quick introduction to myself. Active angel investor. I've invested in over 30 companies to date, both with my accelerator programs as well as through my angel investments. I tend to focus mostly on B2B SaaS, but I really care about investing in underrepresented founders, social impact companies like the work that you're doing at Presently, and everything across the gamut. But my initial focus was in the education space. I really care about education. On the last point, I'm the first in my family to go to college. And when I went to Stanford undergrad, I realized that I stuck out like a sore thumb in a lot of different ways. My poor fashion sense all the way to my academics. But I really wanted to leverage technology to make sure that everyone has access and the tools that they need to succeed in higher education. So that's where I got my start in venture capital and startup acceleration. So let's maybe dig into what is business development. Business development entails the tasks and processes to develop and implement growth opportunities within and between organizations. It is a subset of the fields of business, commerce, and organizational theory. Ultimately, it's about creating value for customers, markets, and relationships. That last point is really, really important. Oftentimes, we like to think of business development as a logic model or a scientific flowchart. But really, it's a combination of the human and the business elements and how everything fits together. It requires understanding people, relationships, building meaningful connections between companies and people. For the sake of today's conversation, we're going to start off with the mindset. What are some of the cultural underpinnings that you need to have as a company in order to foster a business development oriented organization? Talk about the strategy. What are some of the things that you need from the process perspective to set you up for business development success? Who are the people that should be involved in it? And then on top of that foundation, you'll have a slew of different tactics like marketing, sales, partnerships, operational strategy. All of this would be considered business development strategy and execution. So some people might just focus on content marketing or marketing strategy, sales. All of this should come together underneath the umbrella of business development. This is another schematic or a similar kind of breakdown of how some organizations think about business development. There's the how piece, which considers the operation, the activities, the channels, the competition, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Then you have the strategy piece, which is the yellow box or the yellow circle on the top right, the who, the what, the why. Thinking about things like market access, market opportunities, and this is where you might use a strengths, opportunities, and weakness map, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then on the bottom is the more foundational stuff. I know a lot of you are excited about Airtable. And by the way, I have kind of an unhealthy obsession with Airtable. Some people, have started saying some things about it, but I love Airtable so much. And I think it's a great tool for the knowledge management, which we'll talk about at the end of today's presentation. How do we feel so far? Thumbs up, thumbs down, any questions so far? Cool. So the first piece is that mindset element. Oftentimes what we find is that there is a business development team. And the business development team does the marketing, they do the sales, they do the partnerships. But I fundamentally believe that every organization, everybody should be doing business development in some way, shape, or form. Everybody should be bought into the mission, the vision, and be extremely clear about what they're doing there and how do they interact with customers and potential customers, partners and potential partners. So everybody can and should do business development in some way, shape, or form. I'll talk more about that in a bit. The second piece, if you can't measure it, it didn't happen. This is particularly important if you report up to someone who's a little bit more senior. You need to really make the case that you're doing your job effectively, but you need more resources. Resources in the form of time, money, people. But you really need to be critical about what you're measuring, why you're measuring, and how you're measuring it. Again, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. The third piece follows something known as the Pareto principle. The Pareto principle basically says that 20% of your efforts yield 80% of the results. Most founders that I work with tend to be laser focused, but sometimes get distracted. It happens. In the world of work, we see so many interesting new projects that we want to work on, new features that we want to build, but more often than not, we really need to play to our strengths and be aware of what our strengths are. Focus on them, hone them, and that's what our customers are paying for. So being aware of that in the context of the broader market, in the context of your time and your limited resources. So really playing to our strengths. Number 4, having a bias towards action. I see a lot of organizations that plan incessantly. They have spreadsheets, they have calendars, they have flowcharts. It's a lot. Get started with something small, build that momentum, and grow from there. But by trying to overly plan everything from the get-go, usually creates a barrier to implementation and a barrier towards action. And then the final thing, and this is super critical about business development, sales, and really product development in every organization, listening and learning. What I mean by that is listening to the customer, understanding what their core problems are, and using that to inform product development, product marketing, sales strategy, and everything in between. There was, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but there's a famous adage by, or quote rather, from Steve Jobs. And he basically said, you know, if Henry Ford had asked people what they wanted back in the day, they would have said, well, I want a faster horse. But it's our job to listen to what customers are actually saying. And customers were telling him, or supposedly, that they wanted speed, that they wanted to move from point A to point B more effectively, more efficiently, and faster. Not necessarily that they wanted the horse itself or to necessarily have a faster version of it. So trying to listen to customers and what they say and what they don't say will allow you to be more effective in business development. So let's move to the strategy piece. We have that foundational, the mindset components that we talked about. Let's talk about some of the strategy components. Setting goals and objectives, they should be SMART. Can you guys give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you know what SMART stands for?
I think there's only a thumbs up and a clapping, so maybe it's thumbs up if you know and clap if you don't.
Okay. Okay, so all of you are clearly smart because most of you know all thumbs up there. There you go. Cool. So I'll talk a little bit more about SMART goals, but at the end of the day, this should be a core part of your implementation strategy for BizDev. Now, maybe taking a little bit of a step back, understanding your organization, your unique value proposition, the customers, and how does it fit within the larger competitive landscape. So understanding the core business, the peripheral, what is your competition doing? I highly recommend using a SWOT analysis here. If you're in the consulting industry, SWOT is like your bread and butter. If you're not, it's good to learn. Mapping existing and desired core competencies. Again, this really falls into the comment that I made before around the Pareto principle. Ideally, you would be focused on more defensive strategies and more focused on implementing around your core competencies, but understanding that the market shifts in terms of consumer desires, consumer demands, or even competitive pressure. So you have to be nimble as an organization, but really focusing on the core is oftentimes the most effective. Obviously, understanding the customer. I guarantee you this, most founders do not talk to their customers enough. They usually build for themselves or they build what they think everybody wants. But I find that the most effective founders are actively engaged with customers once a day, at least multiple times a week, getting coffees, doing customer analysis, persona development, understanding and testing value propositions. This is so, so critical. What is your positioning and messaging? This is a really great opportunity to use A/B testing. You could use fake landing pages where you'll have split testing. Split testing for the growth marketers here is a really great way to test messaging and also analyze different customer segments. And here it is at the end: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Here's a quick example of a SMART goal. We will generate 300K in ARR, annual recurring revenue, from 10 new strategy consulting clients by the end of Q3 2020. Can someone volunteer from the group and maybe tell me why is it specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant, and time-bound? Anybody want to jump in? No?
I can jump in if you'd like. So yeah, their kind of specific goal within this is to generate 300K in ARR. So that's like the specific end goal of it. In terms of how they're going to measure, I mean, ARR is kind of a continuous measure, so they can measure that continuously throughout. I guess back to specific, 10 strategy consulting clients is also a very specific goal. Achievable 10 is not like kind of a big scary number, if you will. It's something that's very doable in terms of like just your kind of annual goal, or at least quarterly goal. Relevant, getting new consulting clients is relevant to finding your ARR or increasing your ARR. And time bound, they give like a specific, I don't know what quarter this starts, but they at least give a specific time constraint to when this will end and when the goal will end.
Love it. That's great. So one of my favorite things to do is, when somebody does a good job, and I used to be a high school math teacher through Teach for America. So I was like the dad of the class. And one of my favorite things to do when someone does something well is to give 2 snaps. So as a group, we'll do it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Cool. Thank you for that. So a little bit of a quick task or homework assignment for you guys is to generate a SMART business development goal for your organization and put it in the chat. Feel free to comment and provide feedback on one another's goals. Now, I want to make one important caveat here. If you want, you can make this a business development goal for yourself, meaning a personal business development goal. I fundamentally believe that even if we're not working for a startup, a company, maybe we're not even working right now, we should be doing some element of business development, which is relationship development, getting our name out there, updating our LinkedIn profiles, creating content. So again, all of this is business development, even if it's not with the explicit goal of building a company. So take a minute or so to think through a SMART goal for yourself or your company and throw it in the chat. I'll try and read through them. Spencer, Kim, Aaron, Isaac. All of you guys have some great OKRs in there, and you're definitely hitting all of the bullets of specific, measurable, achievable, extremely relevant. Partner with 15 incubators, accelerators within the US by August 1st. Identify at least 5 clients for potential acquisition, different segments by the end of July. This is great. Love this. Awesome. Okay, great. So all of you guys clearly have the hang of it in terms of implementing and thinking about SMART goals. Again, I use SMART goals in my personal life. I also use it in my business context. In fact, I have a SMART goals board right behind me for everything that I do. So let's keep moving along. Great, Anuj, reach out to 5 friends about presently within the next 2 weeks. Awesome, very cool. So maybe going back to understanding the context of your company within the broader market, we use something called a SWOT analysis. Pretty standard, but with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I love doing this as a team because it gives you the opportunity to build a collaborative culture internally, but generate ideas that you might not have considered before. So the way that I'll generally approach this one is we'll go bucket by bucket. So we'll start with strengths. What makes our company great? Things that we do well, qualities that separate us from our competitors, skilled staff, etc. And what we'll do is we'll put a big, white Post-it or like a Post-it paper on the wall. What are our strengths? And get people really, really excited about it. And all of you guys have great personalities. So this is an opportunity to kind of bring that out. And by having that, charisma and excitement, it gets everybody else engaged. So you say, what makes us special? What are the strengths of our team? And then everyone jamming out, putting these Post-it notes on the board. Generally, what you'll do is kind of a fan out and then, fan in approach. So you fan out, which is generative. So you're trying to generate as many ideas as possible. And then you simplify that by having people vote on the top 3, 4, or 5 different Post-it notes on the board. So you'll do that one by one: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And ideally, you'll have the top 3, 4, 5 from strengths from all 4 of these quadrants. And you'll use that to inform the business development and product development and everything strategy going forward. Now that we've done the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities analysis, we kind of need to figure out what are our core competencies and how do we think about the business going forward. Generally, in the under the umbrella of business development strategy, there's 4 kind of sub-strategies, if you will. We have market penetration, product development, market development, and diversification. I'm not going to focus too much on the individual strategies, but it is important to consider which one you're going to focus on so that you could get the most bang for your buck. So let's take a look at this. On the x-axis we have, or the y-axis rather, we have markets. And then on the x-axis, being the top, we have products. So for example, if we want to bring a new product to an existing market, we might use a product development strategy. Now that oftentimes entails a lot of customer discovery, customer interviews to figure out what features and value propositions we're going to build for. But if we're going to take an existing market or an existing product rather, to a new market, then you're going to be much more focused on testing messaging, customer personas, A/B testing of landing pages, marketing strategy, all that kind of stuff. So again, the teams tend to share a lot of this work, but if it's more in the new product camp, it's going to be more on the product-oriented side. If it's more in the existing product camp, then you're going to be doing more of the sales and marketing team. So again, this is just a high-level way of thinking about what are the different strategies in the context of your SWOT analysis. I'm not going to spend time on this because I just want to make sure we leave enough time for Q&A. It's super, super important to analyze your competitors. A lot of people, feel a little bit weird about this, but I follow every single one of my competitors. I sign up for their newsletters. I watch all of their advertisements. I buy their products. I'm like religiously following all of my competitors so that I can be more effective in staying ahead of the curve and anticipating where they're going as a company. So to the extent that you can, if you're building a new company, if you're working for an existing company and you're doing business development, you should know who are the customers of their competitors? What is the branding of your competitors? How do they message their value proposition? How do they handle sales and shipping? You know, something as simple as one company gives you free shipping if you buy $100 worth of product, and another company that doesn't could make all of the difference. So being hyper aware of your competition is going to be really important. If you work on marketing and SEO, you should know what they're using in their H1, H2 tags for SEO optimization. If you're looking at marketing, you should know what kind of graphics they're using. Are they using more people? Are they using more products, puppies and poodles? And then how can you use that to differentiate your brand? And then finally, I'm throwing a lot of information at you, and I'm going to open up the chat tab to make sure that I'm seeing all of your questions if you have any. Again, feel free to throw your questions and comments in the chat, and I'll make sure to answer them as we go through. Organizations lose focus or have misalignment between revenue generating activities and resource allocation. Focus and prioritization is key. When you're an early stage startup, you're trying to find product market fit. I get it. But as you start to get more into the growth stage, really focusing on your core is going to be the most effective bang for your buck. I have a tendency of doing this myself, and I'll be honest. I love building things, but most of my money tends to come from my investments or from my strategy consulting. And sometimes I want to focus on building a new platform or new product because as a software engineer, I love building stuff. So I need to, be more mindful myself, and it's something that everyone I think could learn from. So being intentional about where you're spending your time and why is really, really important. So now, let's get into an example of what business development could look like inside of a company. Let me give you a little bit of context on what this company is. It's a traditional retail store in San Francisco, and the target clientele is younger millennials, and they lost 50% of their foot traffic due to COVID-19. One thing that we noticed in the SWOT analysis was that all of their competitors do not use sustainable products. And we know that millennials love sustainable products. Okay. So now that we have this basic information, let's see how we could put this into something called a customer journey. We have our awareness generating activities, the marketing, the message testing, split testing, etc. And we finally get this guy into a store. We notice he walks into the store without a mask on. The nerve. So here's what we do. The front desk clerk says, "Welcome to XYZ store. Would you like a complimentary mask with XYZ logo on here?" There's two things that are happening. One, the front desk clerk is reasserting that this is XYZ store and creating this happy aspirational environment. And two, they're giving them branded swag that is hopefully good for their health and everyone else's health, but also has our logo on it. That's a business development strategy. The client is browsing the store, hopefully with our new mask on, and takes a flyer for a company we have a referral partnership with. Referral partnerships are a very common business development strategy. It works like this. If we refer a client to a partner company, we get 10, 15, 20, up to 30% of their first, second, or maybe even third year revenue. A great way for us to generate additional cash while doing pretty little to no work. And finally, we have energy efficient light bulbs. And we have signs next to every energy efficient light bulb saying that these are energy efficient light bulbs. The customer gets excited about it because he or she loves sustainability and has more loyalty to our brand. So all of these might feel a little bit weird or different, and they might not fit within the traditional business development framework. But the question is, what part is business development? I want you guys to write in the chat what part, or what parts rather of that customer journey are business development. Maybe I can go back. What parts of this customer discovery or customer journey is considered business development? Given the mask with the logo on it and referral partnership, thanks Gianna. Free mask with logo and partner flyer, Kim. Create stickiness and possible customer retention. Logo on the mask, referral partnership. Brittany, everything from front desk to light bulb. Got a lot of interesting answers here. Let's jump right into it. From front desk to product. Love it. So the answer is all of it. All of it. The front desk has the cheerful greeting, the offer of the branded swag, the complimentary partnership, referral partnership both ways, sustainable branding, and I didn't mention this, the cost savings due to energy efficiency. Business development could look externally and internally as well. If you're able to run your company more efficiently, that's a form of business development. You're getting the same or you're getting better return on investment for less resources needed. So that is underneath the umbrella of business development. So by understanding potential client touch points, using a customer journey, which is great, motivation, desires, ultimately empathizing with them, you open up a lot of business development opportunities. All right, there's a lot here. I have more slides that I can go through. If anybody has any questions or thoughts, feel free to throw them in here and I could kind of take them now. Otherwise, we can just keep going at it. Okay. All right. So let's take a little bit of a step back and you should be able to see my screen. And I'm going to show you Airtable. So I'm actually showing you a live version of my Airtable that I use with one of my consulting teams. Now, to give you a little bit more context, I run a small consulting agency called iLab Collective, where we do innovation strategy and consulting and implementation for Global 2000 companies. We help them ideate, build startups, work with startups, invest in startups, and do everything in between. We work with clients like Visa, Visa Brazil, Santander, the governments of Uruguay, Mexico, and quite a few large corporates globally. So now that you have this context, we have Airtable. And Airtable is a fancy relational database or Excel spreadsheet. Kind of go either way here. And I use it for everything. So I use it for creating lists of investors in Latin America. I use it for creating lists of speakers, partners, advisors, contacts, opportunities, key results, and objectives. So let's kind of go through this one by one. So the great thing about using Airtable is that it is effectively a relational database, meaning that you can relate information in one table to a cell or data inside of another table, hence the word relational database. So we have this objective here, which is grow revenue to 500K ARR by Q4 2019, hence making this a SMART goal. And we have the key results here. So in order to achieve this revenue objective of, again, this should be 2020, but probably a little bit tired when I wrote this. So we have these key results here. Now the key results, I can either click on it here, or I could simply go to the key results tab, which is basically a tracker. And you can see how it's bucketed by the different objectives. So let's look at grow revenue to 500K ARR, and then we have all of the different status updates, the people who own these tasks, the deadlines, etc. So if I go back to objectives, this column right here, if I go to customize field type, I can choose all of the different field types, but usually for something like this, I'll use linked to another record. I'll click on key results, and now it'll be linked to an object inside of my key results table. So I can click create accelerator and startup testimonials. I could assign people to, for example, Bobby is going to be working on this particular objective, or key result rather. And I can get all of the information about this updated here. Now, I use this for sales management as well. And we'll go back and talk about sales management strategy, but this is an example of effectively a CRM or a sales management tracker. This is not updated, but basically, we have all of the different opportunities in here. So for example, Colgate-Palmolive was a $100,000 deal that's out for proposal right now. We have the sales collateral in here, so we know exactly what version of the sales collateral we used with this particular client. We have the owner, we have the status. We could definitely use a little bit more information, but this is generally a good starting point to getting a sales funnel set up, starting from lead all the way to closed won or lost. What's really helpful is if you lose a deal, really, really good to get some information on why you lost it, because if you know that, it could inform how you better present your messaging for the next client. So that's something to think about. If you lose a deal, and I guarantee you're going to lose a deal at some point in your life. If you don't, I want to hire you right now. But I guarantee you're going to lose a deal. And I lose 90% of my deals, if you want me to be honest. That's just kind of the way that this world works, is that it's very competitive, and you lose a ton. I'm pitching all the time, so I lose a ton of deals, and you get a little bit of thick skin from it. But the worst thing that you could do is you could lose a deal and not learn from it. So making sure that you have a process set up to understand why you lost it will be very, very critical. One thing that's really important for a sales management platform is associating those opportunities in the sales funnel with different accounts. An account is a company or a business unit within a company. So for example, we have, let's look at Anglo-American, it is a corporate, and we have Alexandre Vidal. We have Alexandre's contact information, his title, his LinkedIn profile, and any other information about him. So this is linked to the contacts. If you see contacts up here, it might be linked to a key result. It might be linked to a general task, etc. But really leveraging Airtable for its relational capabilities is really, really powerful. That's basically all I have right now. I also use this for expense tracking as well. Some people like Expensify. I like to keep everything in the same spot. So expense tracking, event management, all of it. Cool. Any questions on Airtable before we move? Good question. So how much of this is brand strategy versus business development? Where do you draw the line? Great question. And the second question from Spencer, how does this compare with Salesforce as the most well-known CRM system? So I'll answer the first question. Brand strategy should fit underneath the umbrella in some way, shape, or form with business development. Again, like I said before, business development is a broad bucket, but the whole point of having business development is so there's a cohesive strategy. More often than not, you'll have the marketing team working in a silo, completely independent from the product development team. But business development is a great way to create that unity amongst all of the teams and say, hey, we're aligned towards the same objective and we're all working together. So brand strategy should also inform marketing strategy, which should also inform sales strategy as well. So I would say business development is kind of that umbrella under which brand strategy should fit. So great question. And then the final question from Spencer: how does this compare with Salesforce as the most well-known CRM system? To be honest, I love saving money. So it's more about thinking critically around what best serves your needs now. And for me, the features that I get with Airtable and the customizability are critically important for me. My use cases tend to be unique from business to business or from client to client. So I love that Airtable is super, super flexible. Salesforce, incredibly robust. They have Salesforce Lite, and they have the main enterprise Salesforce version. Usually with Salesforce, you get locked into a 6-month or a 12-month contract. So you know that you have to pay, and it tends to be pretty expensive. Some of the other CRM platforms that I like are Insightly, HubSpot, Salesforce. I never really got sold on it. And if you're looking for your own personal CRM, I highly recommend using Full Contact Plus, or actually Contacts Plus. And I'll write that here, Contacts Plus, or the website is contactsplus.com. The benefit of using Contacts Plus, Salesforce, HubSpot, etc., is something known as enrichment. So enrichment is when you get more information about a client and you feed that into your CRM or customer relationship management platform. Effectively, it enriches it with LinkedIn information, blog posts from that particular person, where they live, their birthdays. Birthdays are huge. If you could send someone an email or a note saying happy birthday, you're going to get so much more loyalty and respect from that person. That's a great business development strategy and a really good tool to have when you have a CRM. Cool. So we have about 6-ish minutes. I'll try and quickly go through some of these slides, and if you have more questions, happy to answer them through email or whatever after. All right. One more thing about sales and growth overall, there's three main components. You have acquisition, which is getting more leads. You have conversion, which means someone's interested. Now, how do you get them to be a paid customer? And then retention and expansion. Honestly, I see a lot of money spent on acquisition. I see a little bit of time spent on conversion. And more often than not, I spend little to no, or I see little to no time spent on retention and, importantly, expansion. Expansion is really, really critical. You could do a couple different things. You can upsell, you can cross-sell, and you could refer. So if you're upselling to a more premium option, if you're cross-selling to a different product that you sell within your company, or if you're referring, you could refer to a third party for a referral commission. So retention and expansion are so, so critical, because if you get someone in the door and they leave after 3 months, you just lost a lot of lifetime value of that customer. This is a little bit more information, but basically everything I said before, it's getting people in the door, getting them signed up, and keeping them there, and hopefully getting them to spend more money. A really good strategy for SaaS subscription companies is called freemium. So you get them to sign up for 3 months, 6 months for free, and then you hopefully get them to sign up for a recurring monthly or annual subscription. So this is another variation of that retention and expansion piece that I was talking about before. All right, so let's do this quick. Some things to consider in the time of COVID. Like you, like a lot of you, I definitely have anxiety around what's going to happen with the world, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. I have family members that are losing jobs. I have people to support my family. A lot of people are anxious right now. So it's really important that we're mindful of this. And Presently has been doing a really good job of messaging and being mindful of that. So hats off to you guys on focusing on that. But don't stay silent on things that matter. Be proactive, be out there, be reassuring to people. Give without the expectation of anything in return. I give a lot of my time, a lot of my energy with no expectation of anything in return, but usually it comes back in some way, shape, or form. For this presentation, like maybe one of you guys will reach out to me and say, hey, I'm working on this cool new idea or something. And we eventually become friends. That's return on my investment. But giving without the expectation of return is super important from a personal life perspective, but from a business development perspective as well. And then focusing on your digital presence, focusing on what you do well, some unique messaging, and really focusing on delivering value to your readers will be super important here. I'm not going to go through these. You have the presentation, but there's some very strong COVID considerations if you're a startup or an early stage company. Maybe now is the right time to M&A. Maybe to buy a company, maybe to sell to another company. What are your CapEx versus your OpEx expenses, and how can you optimize that to be the most effective within your company? All right, I'm gonna leave these here. These are some case studies that basically case studies of companies that have adapted to the changing climate of COVID. For example, Deskmate is looking for new suppliers for their standing desk because there's been so much demand. Another quick example, a social club in Washington, D.C. for families has pivoted to a virtual services social club where they have online events, online communities, and other support mechanisms for both families and for adults. So this is a great time to think about how can we adapt to this digital first society that maybe has anxiety, How can we create that space and opportunity to drive business in this time? So to wrap it up, here's my homework. Write up your personal business development plan. I highly encourage you, if you don't, to get a mentor, an ally, someone who supports you. I also very much encourage you, because all of you have something to give, to mentor other people, whether it's a high school student, another college student, maybe even someone older than you. Everyone stands to learn from what you have to offer. Think about the news sources that you're following. Is it tech-centric? Is it Fox News? Is it, I'll make another comment on that another time, but you should be really considering what types of news sources you're following and why. What are your top 3 revenue generating priorities? B, who are your top 5 existing clients and how can you upsell them? How can you get client testimonials from them? How can you get them to refer you to other potential clients? So if you do end up doing this, send it to me. I'd love to read it and give you some feedback. But in the meantime, I really thank you all for listening to my spiel for the past hour. And I unfortunately do have to hop off. I wish we had a little bit more time for Q&A. One quick thing. I put together a little platform called the Social Justice Planner to help people do social impact. If you're so inclined and want to donate, please feel free to go to socialjusticeplanner.com/public list to find a bunch of organizations that are supporting Black Lives Matter and the social justice movement to donate 10 to 20 bucks. If you do, feel free to send me a little ping and let me know which one you chose and why. My contact information. Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to thank you, but share. Yeah, I was about to mention your skills workshop, so that's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some skills workshops coming up, which is personal productivity this Thursday, all the way to a venture building crash course, which will happen on July 28th. I'll send Dahlia the link that she can share out with you guys. And if you need anything at all, here's my contact information. So thank you all, and really nice to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm sorry, everyone, that we don't have more time for Q&A, but always reach out to him if you have any other questions or join one of his upcoming sessions. Joe, this was super helpful. Thank you so much, particularly for me, just thinking about that product versus market grid and just thinking through, like, where are we focusing on existing products for existing customers versus new products for existing customers versus any of the other things. It's a really big takeaway for me. So thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and hope you all have a great Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope to keep in touch with all of you over the near future.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye.